That's the soft glow of the TV illuminated the living room, casting a cozy ambience. I settled onto the couch, sandwiching my daughter between myself and our loyal pit bull. Sunday evening movie nights were our cherished ritual, a brief respite from my demanding work schedule. The aroma of popcorn wafted through the air as the opening credits of Wonder Woman 1984 flickered on the screen. My daughter's wide eyes gleamed with anticipation, her little fingers clutching a handful of popcorn. At Tua's and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman graced the screen, my daughter's excitement reached its peak. The movie unfolded, filled with action, adventure, and the empowering presence of a female superhero. The turning point arrived during a romantic scene between Wonder Woman and Chris Pine's character. My daughter, normally animated during such moments, grew unusually silent. Then, unexpectedly, she broke the stillness, pointing at the screen and exclaiming, "That's Mama and Leo." Caught off guard, I turned to her with a mixture of confusion and amusement. "Mama and who, sweetheart?" I inquired, trying to make sense of the unfamiliar name. Mama and who, sweetheart? I inquired, trying to make sense of the unfamiliar name. "Leo," Ichi repeated, her eyes fixed on the TV. "Leia is Leo," Ichi insisted. A chuckle escaped me at her innocent insistence. "All right, Leo, it is then." Little did I know those two words uttered by my daughter were about to unravel a mystery that would shake the foundations of our family life. The days that followed our special movie night carried a peculiar weight, and the mystery of Leo lingered in the air. Determined to decipher the enigma, our family ventured out for our routine evening walk with our pit bull and towel. First, the community park, adorned with greenery, presented the perfect backdrop for an ordinary family outing turned peculiar. Relaxing as we strolled, our daughter skipped ahead, the pit bull's leash in her grasp. A short walk turned into an unexpected rendezvous when we crossed paths with a neighbor coming from the opposite direction. "Hey there!" The take to the neighbor, a man named Brody, greeted us with a friendly smile. His dog, a playful companion to ours, exchanged curious sniffs. Our daughter, however, remained unusually quiet, her gaze fixated on Brody. Our pit bull, seemingly recognizing Brody's dog, grew excited. The two dogs exchanged a series of barks and wagging tails, hinting at a connection beyond our understanding. It was a fleeting moment, but the air held an odd tension. Curiosity piqued. I directed a question at Brody. "Do our dogs know each other?" I asked, attempting to make sense of the strange encounter.
Odie maintained his friendly demeanor reply, "Seems like it. Dogs have their own way of recognizing each other, don't they?"
Meanwhile, my wife, glancing at our daughter, subtly avoided eye contact. Something felt amiss, and my suspicions heightened. As we continued our walk, the awkward energy surrounding us lingered, even though the encounter lasted only a few seconds. I looked at my wife again, expecting her to acknowledge the peculiarity of the situation. "Who was that, babe?" I suppressed, my voice carrying a hint of concern. As an upstairs neighbor, she dismissed nonchalantly, her eyes focused straight ahead. "But how does our daughter know him?" I probed further, sensing a reluctance in her response. "Probably just a coincidence, dear. Kids pick up on things. She sighed, her dismissive tone unchanged. The puzzle pieces seemed to scatter further, and the mysterious link between our daughter's innocent revelation and the encounter with Brody left me restless, yearning for answers yet hesitant to confront the unsettling truth. Determined to unearth the truth, I found myself standing at a crossroads, torn between trusting my wife's reassurances and pursuing the unsettling doubts that gnawed at my mind. This is unable to quell the rising suspicions. I made a pivotal decision to enlist the expertise of a private investigator. With trepidation, I reached out to a discreet professional, hoping to shed light on the shadows that now loomed over our seemingly ordinary life. The investigator, a shrewd individual named Mr. Daniels, met me in a dimly lit bar for an initial rendezvous. He sported an air of confidentiality, the kind that assured me my secrets would be safe with him. Like Mr. Daniels, I need your help, I began, my voice carrying a mix of urgency and anxiety. There's something I can't quite put my finger on, and I need to know the truth. He leaned forward, studying my face intently. Oh, go on. I'm listening. As I recounted the events leading to the discovery of Leoze and the curious encounter with Brody, Mr. Daniels nodded thoughtfully. Family matters can be complex, he said, and sometimes the truth is elusive. But rest assured, I'll do my best to unveil whatever may be hidden. Iteration, days passed, each one stretching longer than the last as my anxiety intensified. The call finally came, summoning me to another clandestine meeting with Mr. Daniels. Is the calf, with its muted conversations and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, served as our rendezvous point. A truth has a way of revealing itself. Mr. Daniels began, his tone carrying a weighty certainty. And sometimes it's not what we expect. As he shared his findings, a series of photographs were laid out on the table, a visual narrative of Brody's involvement with multiple women. My heart sank as I recognized the face of my wife among them, their moments frozen in time, intimate and damaged. The truth, once concealed, now stared me in the face, and the silence that followed was palpable. What do you want to do with this information, Mr. Hardy?
Take Mr. Daniels inquired, breaking the heavy silence.
I need to confront her. I responded, my voice steadier than I felt. I can't continue living in the shadows of deception. The die was cast, and the revelations that followed would change the course of our lives forever. Betrayal propelled me towards a confrontation that would redefine the course of our lives. As armed with the damning evidence gathered by Mr. Daniels, I returned home. But the weight of the truth was heavy on my shoulders. A naked superior scent of our shared space now carried an undertone of deceit. The prospect of confronting my wife loomed like a storm on the horizon. That evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting long shadows across our living room, I found her sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. Her appearance betrayed no hint of the storm that brewed within me. I said, I need to talk to you, my voice strained but resolute.
She looked up, a faint smile playing on her lips.
I asked, about what, dear? Taking a deep breath, I tried to find the right words. I began about Leo. I watched her expression closely. Her eyes flickered, betraying a hint of nervousness. She asked, "Leo, what do you mean?" I laid the photographs on the coffee table, each one a testament to the betrayal that had unfolded behind closed doors. Her eyes widened as they met the damning evidence. Silence hung in the room, broken only by the distant sounds of the city outside. I asked, "Care to explain this?" My voice was cold and composed. She replied, "I don't know what you're talking about." But the pictures spoke louder than any protestations. As the weight of the evidence pressed upon her, she crumbled, the mask of denial slipping away. I whispered, "I trusted you," the words heavy with disappointment. The tears welled in her eyes, a mix of regret and remorse. She said, "I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened." That's the revelation of her affair unfolded in the cold reality of our living room. Unsupported confession, tainted with the bitterness of betrayal, brought an unspoken acknowledgement of the irreparable damage inflicted upon our marriage. As the night stretched before us, punctuated by the shattering of trust and the echoes of shattered promises, the unraveling of our union had just begun. Where the echoes of the confrontation lingered in the air, a dissonant melody of shattered trust and broken promises. As the night wore on, the reality of our fractured union became undeniable, prompting a painful decision that would reshape the course of our lives. Amidst the wreckage of our shared dreams, I found myself guiding her towards a new apartment, a physical manifestation of the emotional chasm that now separated us. The late city lights flickered outside, mirroring the uncertainty that hung over our future. "Action," I said, "I can't continue living like this." My voice tinged with a mixture of sadness and determination. She nodded, her eyes heavy with regret. I added, "You need a new start, and so do I." She replied, "I never wanted it to come to this." The apartment door clicked shut behind her, leaving me standing in the emptiness of our once shared space. But the silence that settled within those walls spoke volumes, each room echoing with the remnants of a love that had withered away. In the days that followed, I faced dissolution of our marriage, grappling with the aftermath of betrayal and loss. But the dissolution of our marriage took shape through the paperwork of a divorce agreement. Decision replaced the once shared decisions, and the lawyers became mediators of our failed union. The financial aspects were sorted, alimony was agreed upon, and the legal threads that bound us were methodically severed. As we signed the final documents, the air grew heavy with the weight of what once was. "I hope you find happiness," I offered, the words tinged with a bittersweet sincerity. "I'm sorry for everything." Truly, the acknowledgement of remorse offered no solace. Just with a final exchange of glances, we parted ways and the door closed on a chapter that had once held promises of forever. It's in the solitude of my newfound space, I grappled with the remnants of a life left behind. Depths of the Friar's Studios, the walls echoed with memories, and the emptiness was both a burden and a blank canvas, awaiting the strokes of a new beginning. The end of our union marked not only a separation of two lives, but also the birth of a journey towards healing and self-discovery. The specter of betrayal cast a long shadow, igniting a relentless fire within me, a thirst for retribution against the architect of my broken marriage, Brody. The private investigator's findings had exposed a web of deceit, and armed with the knowledge of Brody's involvement with multiple women, including my now ex-wife, I embarked on a mission to dismantle the life he had built. This is in the dimly lit corners of my newfound solitude, I immersed myself in devising a plan to bring about Brody's downfall. Late nights were spent researching, and financial resources were poured into a quest for vengeance. One day, our paths crossed in the same community park that had witnessed the peculiar encounter. As I walked our pit bull, the leash held tightly in my grip, I noticed Brody in the distance, walking his dog. The air crackled with a tension that only I seemed to sense. "And hope your dog enjoys its freedom," Brody E. said, casting a disapproving glance at the tightly leashed pit bull. "She's more disciplined than some." As the days unfolded, my quest intensified. Analysis, I delved into Brody's professional life, uncovering vulnerabilities that could be exploited. The more I learned, the more my desire for revenge swelled. Soon it became a personal crusade, fueled not only by the wreckage of my marriage, but also by the injustice I perceived in Brody's actions. One evening, in a chance encounter at a local cafe, our eyes met over steaming cups of coffee. The tension in the air was palpable, the unspoken acknowledgement of the battle that raged beneath the surface. "Like Morley Mr. Hardy, isn't it?" Brody grinned, feigning innocence. I nodded, my gaze unwavering. "You're Brody the neighbor?" I replied. "I've heard about your recent troubles." Off-break. Exchange was veiled, a silent duel of words that held more weight than they let on. Just behind the veneer of casual conversation, the clash of two adversaries played out, a silent struggle for dominance. These days turned into weeks, and the culmination of my efforts bore fruit. Fruit bore. Verbally unaware of the storm that approached, faced the consequences of his actions. The company he worked for had a strict policy against relationships with subordinates, and the evidence I provided ensured his swift downfall. He said unemployed and discredited, he was forced to abandon the apartment he once shared with my ex-wife. As Brody's life crumbled, my sense of satisfaction was bittersweet. The thirst for vengeance, once all-consuming, left behind a void, a realization that perhaps the truest revenge was not in dismantling someone else's world, but in rebuilding my own. This is in the aftermath of the storm, as the winds of retribution settled, I found myself standing at a crossroads. First, the quest for vengeance had run its course, leaving behind both triumphs and scars. The chapter of Brody's undoing closed, and I was left to ponder the cost of my pursuit, a cost measured not just in the toll it took on Brody, but also in the toll it took on my own soul. In the wake of my quest for vengeance, a chilling silence engulfed my life. Christine, the victory over Brody had a bitter taste, leaving behind the haunting echoes of betrayal and the solitude of a once shared existence. The repercussions of my actions reverberated through the empty rooms. each one bearing witness to the remnants of a life that had crumbled. As I navigated the solitude, my ex-wife faced the consequences of her choices alone. The air was thick with regret and despair, emotions that found no solace in my hardened heart. She pleaded for mercy, begged for forgiveness, but the wounds ran deep, and I remained unmoved. I never meant for it to happen this way, she whispered through tear-streaked eyes, her voice laden with remorse. My response was a stoic silence, a refusal to be swayed by the emotional turbulence that surrounded us. The gravity of her betrayal hung in the air, an impenetrable barrier between us. Her last months of pregnancy unfolded in the shadow of her mistakes. The impending arrival of a child only intensified the gravity of her solitude. Friends distanced themselves, family turned away, and she found herself grappling with the weight of her choices. Choices that had severed the bonds of trust and fractured the foundation of our family. Yet even as I stood on the periphery of her struggle, my sympathy remained elusive. Was the obituary of the unborn child, a potential product of the affair, became a symbol of the wreckage rather than a beacon of hope. A letter sent to Brody from the hospital informed him of the impending birth. 9 months passed, but Brody never materialized. My ex-wife revealed that he had vanished from her life, a final act of abandonment that mirrored the void he had left behind. But through the months, the struggle intensified, a solitary journey through the peaks and valleys of her circumstances. The societal judgment weighed heavily, casting her into the shadows of isolation. As the due date approached, her plea for mercy persisted, a desperate cry for understanding. Standing, she cried with eyes pleading for a shred of compassion. But the bitterness within me refused to yield. You made your choices, I replied coldly. Now you must face the consequences. The loneliness enveloping her was the bitter fruit of her betrayal, a stark contrast to the shared dreams that once bound us. As soon as the walls closed in, I stood on the fringes of her solitary struggle, an unwilling spectator to the unraveling of a life once entwined with mine. But the looming specter of solitude, both mine and my ex-wife's, reached a critical juncture as the moment of childbirth drew near. The hospital corridors echoed with the rhythmic footsteps of nurses and the hushed murmurs of impending life. As I stood by her side, a silent witness to the culmination of her struggle, the air was charged with an uneasy tension. The tensions that Tal used to delivery room, with its antiseptic scent and sterile lighting, became the battleground where the final act of our shared history played out. The weight of anticipation hung in the air as she lay on the delivery bed, her eyes filled with a mix of apprehension and vulnerability. I'm here for the baby, I stated, my voice detached and clinical, betraying none of the emotions churning within. She nodded, her gaze shifting to the impending arrival that symbolized both a fresh start and a haunting reminder of the past. As the labor pains intensified, the room became a crucible of emotions. The medical team worked in synchronized precision, their movements deliberate and practiced. The arrival of a new life should have been a cause for celebration, but the shadows of infidelity and betrayal lingered, casting a pall over the moment. As the cries of the newborn filled the room, a fragile peace settled within me, a sense of closure that transcended the tumultuous journey that had led to this point. The child, born into the complexities of our intertwined destinies, became a symbol of redemption, a chance for renewal in the aftermath of the wreckage. The nurse carefully placed the baby in her arms, and as she cradled the newborn, a flicker of emotion crossed her face. Is it in that fleeting moment the weight of motherhood collided with the burdens of regret and remorse? That is it, she began, her voice faltering. The paternity test will reveal the truth, I replied, my gaze fixed on the newborn, acknowledging the uncertainties that lay ahead. In the days that followed, a paternity test confirmed my biological connection to the child. The revelation carried a weight of responsibility that transcended the bitterness of the past. A tentative dialogue began, a strained exchange about co-parenting and the shared responsibilities of raising a child. I never expected you to forgive me, she admitted one evening, her eyes reflecting a blend of gratitude and disbelief. I haven't, I responded tersely, but our focus should be on the child. For its sake, we need to find a way to navigate this new reality. The process of healing and redemption stretch before us, a journey fraught with uncertainties but tinged with the possibility of a fresh start. As we tentatively embrace the challenges of co-parenting, the shadows of the past began to recede, allowing the fragile seeds of closure and redemption to take root, promising a tentative future. Birthed from the embers of a broken past. Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like, subscribe to our channel, and write in the comments what you think about the story.